Motivation came so fast and you said, that's it. But 3 weeks have passed and now you've quit. What is it about motivation that makes us quit? You're about to find out. Let's take a science break. In order to better understand motivation, we need to understand how human emotions work. And that's because our emotions have a dramatic impact on how motivated we are to do different things. For example, if you're excited to go to the gym, you're motivated to go to the gym. If you're depressed in general, you won't be motivated to do much at all. So the studies we're going to look at examine how habits affect our emotions. From that, we'll be able to determine how consistent action toward a goal impacts our motivation to pursue that very goal. Acknowledging the complexity of emotion, the researchers in this study, Quinn, Wood, and Kashi, started out by referencing some of the classic works in psychology in regards to human emotion in terms of how it is affected over time, especially by repeating behaviors. A Dutch psychologist by the name of Nico Frege has dedicated his entire life's work to the study of human emotions. In 1988, he developed what he calls laws of emotion. And one of the laws is, quote, "Continued pleasures wear off. Continued hardships lose their poignancy." In other words, the more you do something, the less emotional you'll be about it. They also reference George Mandler, an American psychologist known for his theory of mind and emotion. Mandler's theory of mind and emotion is essentially that emotion is caused by stimulus events. Put another way, interruptions or surprises or anything that's outside of what we expect. Cybernetic model of self-regulation. The idea behind that fancy phrase is that emotions emerge from changes in the rate at which one's behavior and outcomes are meeting or failing to meet self-goals. Your expectation compared to what you're actually getting out of yourself. So if you expect to run 300 miles and you only run 50 steps, according to this theory, you would experience a very strong emotion of disappointment. And that makes a lot of sense. The two diary studies had 70 and 209 participants respectively. A diary study just means that they had students track their behavior in a diary or electronic device. The first thing they found is that people were more likely to think about other things when doing something habitual than when they did something non-habitual. Second, they noted that non-habitual tasks were given increased attention and focus. And what's really interesting is that along with decreased attention, and perhaps because of it, they found people to be less emotional about their habitual behaviors. With this information, we now have the missing piece of a very common cycle. Emotion fuels motivation, which allows us to take action. And now we know that repeating an action over time decreases our emotion toward that behavior. So, when emotions are decreased from repeating the behavior, our motivation is weakened because the behavior no longer excites or inspires us as much, which usually ends with us quitting the behavior. And now this removes a circle, and we're left with low motivation and low emotion about that behavior. This can easily turn into a negative spiral of apathy. Or also common is that the person will wait until the idea of change excites them again, and they restart this process. Of course, this is only a problem if you rely on motivation in the first place. Wait a second. Just because habits are not emotional during the performance of the behavior doesn't mean that the person is not excited about the behavior, right? Maybe so and maybe not. In my experience, this is not the case. Habits just aren't as exciting at any part of the process when compared to non-habitual behaviors. And how are you going to be really excited about something and then turn that excitement off like a switch once you start it? It doesn't make sense. But just for argument's sake, and to leave no doubt that getting motivated is a terrible starting strategy, Let's say that this whole theory is unfounded because it only studied people's emotions during these behaviors, and not how they felt about the behavior beforehand. I found something very interesting buried within this study that really drives the point home. Students reported when they experienced emotional change, and whether it came from what they were thinking at the time or what they were doing at the time. Now, keep in mind that a get motivated strategy is based on talking yourself into doing something. It's a thinking battle of the mind. So, on to the results. In the second study of 209 participants, they attributed 66% of their emotion change to actions versus only 34% to thoughts. That's a 2-to-1 ratio in favor of action. So, put it together and what do you have? The goal of getting motivated is to change your emotion toward a behavior. This study found a much stronger correlation between action stirring emotion as opposed to thoughts. Now, the get motivated strategy is based on changing your thoughts in order to change your emotions, which will stir you to take action. But we just found out that emotions are best stirred by taking action, not trying to think yourself into taking action. This is why motivational strategies fail so often. Something I like to say sums it up well. Motivation comes fast when you take action first. And even if it doesn't, well, you're still taking action. In the upcoming Motivation in Action sequence, Laura will demonstrate 3 ways that motivation can fail us. Stay tuned.